So it's shortly after 7 o'clock, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. It is Wednesday, January 29th, 2020. This is a special council meeting of council. It is unlike the other other meetings we've had in regards to the special policy area in the way that it is not a public meeting, which means that anybody that is speaking and is on the agenda, they have the right to come forward at their designated time as they call upon them. But any members of the gallery are not allowed to speak at this meeting. And I just noticed I did not take my notes up, so I'm going to grab those for a second so I can continue on. Thank you. Also, when you walk through the door, you would have seen the code of conduct for the meeting, which is on the door there. Hopefully you had a time to read through that so you can understand what the code of conduct is for the gallery. I'm not going to read through that during this time. I also just want to thank you for attending this evening and taking the time out of your day. So the process for today's council meeting will be to listen to each of the delegations as they come forward, and they have 5 minutes to speak. And after that 5 minutes, I'm going to cut them off just because we do have a number of speakers, which will bring us to about an hour into this meeting, so about approximately 8 o'clock. And those comments will be comments and statements, and if there is any questions at all for council, they won't be answering them at that time just because of the amount of time that we have for this meeting and to stay on time. Following the delegations, our planner, Aaron Besch, will be going through each of the special policy areas and providing her analysis to us. And after each special policy area, council will have an opportunity to comment or ask questions to staff and ultimately give their opinion on what they would like to see changed or altered, or if they need any further information, or if they believe that it should be left as it is. Following this meeting, Aaron and the planning staff will prepare their recommendations for any potential official plan amendments or zoning bylaw amendments, or the possibility to, or possible additional reports to help council assist in this review process. So before I begin and ask the first delegation to come forward, I'd like to just remind each of the delegations that this is, their comments are to be in regards to the special policy area and in the review process on the official plan designation or the designation for the zoning specifically for that property that you're speaking to. So I think I've taken up enough time to get to that 7:05 mark for the delegation. Before I do that, I'll ask if any council member has any declaration of pecuniary interest or seeing that there's no conflicts, so we do have a number of delegations as I mentioned, and our first one for 7:05 is Fred Cahill, and he's at 1745 Melwood Drive, and he would like to speak to Special Agricultural Policy Area 4A, and that's for the property 25700 Kerwood Road. Fred.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Again, my name is Fred Cahill. I live at 1745. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me back here? My name is Fred Cahill. I live at 1745 Melwood Drive. When I look back at these meetings, all these meetings that we've had on biosolids, the first meeting held in council chambers. We had standing room only. The second meeting was in the basement. Attendance was out the door. The third meeting here in the fire hall was full. I look at all the letters we received from concerned citizens of the township, informed citizens with bona fide concerns. You know, 30 years ago, if the government had one letter of concern, it was the equivalent of 10,000 voices. We had over 300 letters. It was an amazing response. We've asked Ralph and Heather Cormack, who live in close proximity to the proposed storage site to speak on behalf of the many concerned citizens of this township. But before I hand the microphone over to Ralph, I just want to repeat what my good friend Gord Walker said, and I quote, "We have to believe in the system. In other words, we have to believe in you, our council, to make the decisions that are best for our community." You can hand the mic to Ralph. Okay, Ralph.
Thank you, Brett, for those comments. The next delegation that we have for us is Ralph Cormack at 26034 Kerwood Road, and he would like to speak to Special Agricultural Policy Area 4A, and that's for 25700 Kerwood Road.
Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Councilors, thank you very much for allowing me to speak. My name is Ralph Cormack, 26034 Kerwood Road. I'm here to speak for a number of concerned citizens against the proposed biosolid storage at 25700 Kerwood Road. Biosolids are comprised of human waste. Human waste includes sewage from all sources, residential, commercial, industrial, and hospitals. There's biosolid sludge and there's biosolid fertilizer. The sludge from human waste is processed into pellets to become biosolid fertilizer. This biosolid fertilizer is only tested for H10 heavy metals, but not thoroughly tested for numerous toxins, pathogens, chemical contaminants, and bacteria that are present. Imagine what's being flushed down your toilets, in your drains, in your house, or in a hospital, or an industrial plant. Do you want some of those products in the soil that will eventually end up in the wheat, the corn, and the beans that you grow and you eat? If not, say no to the biosolid storage site. A major issue we have is the odor of the biosolid fertilizer emits. The odor is strong and lasts longer than any animal manure fertilizer that farmers spread. This farmland at 25700 Kerwood Road has biosolid fertilizer spread on this land this summer. Our experience is we continue to smell the biosolid odor 6 months later, especially on damp, foggy days or when we have a recent precipitation in the area. We cannot imagine the odor will emanate from a large storage, biosolid storage area 24/7, 365 days of the year. For this reason, we need to say no to a biosolid storage site. What are the toxins in the gas that's emitted by this fertilizer? What is the impact of the toxic gas on our health? Already, local people have reported respiratory issues from breathing fumes from a relatively small amount of this fertilizer. Consideration must be given for the health and well-being of the residents of our township. For this, we must say no to the biosolid storage area. The biosolid storage area source contamination water will be a concern. If there's any spills or leaks of the biosolids, then the water table could be contaminated, which will affect the drinking water of many local residents. The Sydenham River is in close proximity of the proposed biosolid storage site. And there's a large downhill slope where the surface water could flow from the site into the river. The Sydenham River is one of the most diverse watersheds in Canada, and presently it is relatively undisturbed by industrial and urban development. We need to ensure now and in the future that this Sydenham River and the surrounding source water is not contaminated from an industrial site. This means we have to say no to a biosolid storage site. Biosolid applications is banned in other countries as follows. Switzerland has completely banned the use of biosolids on agricultural soils because of the risk of irreversible damage to the soil and the danger to public health. Germany Environmental Agency deems agricultural use of biosolids to be a serious public health and environmental hazard and advocates that this practice be phased out. Swedish government just published the following notice. Since biosolids contain environmental and health hazardous substances, drug residues, and microplastics, our task force will propose a ban on spreading of biosolids on farmland. In November 2019, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency published a notice saying it can no longer assure the public that biosolids are safe. In Florida, California, and Connecticut, there are counties that have banned the applications of biosolids in agricultural land. There are already some grocery stores that will not purchase product if biosolids have been used on the land. We need to be a community, a province, a country that says no to biosolids, and thus we need to say no to the biosolid storage site. If biosolid fertilizer is so safe, then why are the fake fertilizer and chemical companies not selling this biosolids product? Does the industry know something we do not know? Or are they concerned about the long-term effects of using biosolids on agricultural land, food grown, and animals that are raised on the land? This is the reason to say no to biosolids and the proposed biosolids storage site. Biosolid fertilizer has the potential of spontaneous combustion. This was evidenced in the municipality of Donnyfina, which in 2019 passed a new bylaw that has penalties for fire calls associated with the improper storage of the biosolid fertilizer. But the proposed large biosolid storage site is not the spontaneous combustion concern magnified tenfold. This is a reason to say no to the biosolid storage site. The town of Lincoln said no to a biosolid storage facility in 2016. The ruling was upheld by the Ontario Municipal Board. Our council can and should do the same thing by saying no to the proposed biosolid storage site. Thank you.
Hey, thank you for sticking to the 5 minutes. My timer did go off. You went over about 5 seconds, so that was perfect timing. I'll make sure I put the timer up a little more, and I'll stand up about the 30-second mark before the 5 minutes ends, just for everybody else talking. Jennifer, is it 5 minutes or is it 6 minutes? 6. Okay. I assumed a 1 minute up and down sitting thing, so I'll make sure I'll change it over to 6 minutes. So the next is Heather Cormack at 26034 Kerwood Road, and she's wanting to speak to special policy area, agriculture area 4A, and that's at 25700 Kerwood Road.
Municipal Council, I'm Heather Cormack and I live at 26034 Kerwood Road. Thank you for the opportunity to speak at this meeting. I am speaking on behalf of a number of concerned citizens in our township regarding the special policy area designation allowing industrial use for 25700 Kerwood Road. All of my comments refer to this property and its possible industrial use. Residents from all areas of our township have made their concerns known regarding the possible industrial use of this property. Meetings in 2019 were well attended, and many residents have spoken out either verbally or in writing indicating their concerns. We would like the official plan amended to remove the special policy area designation allowing industrial use. We understand that this change would result in this property being zoned as agricultural use only. We make this request for the following reasons. There are 5 key concerns. 1. Source water protection. The close proximity of this land to the Sydenham River is a key concern for any and all individuals whose wells and drinking water are impacted by the quality of this river. More extreme weather events have become commonplace in recent years. As a result, floodplain areas are being re-examined for possible extension from existing models. With the regular rains this past spring, there was water running down the ditches from this property directly into the Sydenham River. Potential contamination of this river must be avoided, as the quality of this river impacts source water for numerous families from Adelaide Metcalfe Road area to the St. Clair River. 2. Protection of our environment. There is a concern with the negative impact on the Sydenham River for protection of our drinking water, as well as protection for species at risk. It is one of the most biodiverse rivers in Canada. There are several species at risk in this river which are not found in any other watercourses in Ontario. Industrial use is in contradiction of the provincial policy statement, which I'll now refer to as PPS 1141, which states that healthy and viable rural areas should be supported by H. Conserving biodiversity and considering the ecological benefits provided by nature. 3. Impact on surrounding agricultural lands. This is a concern both in the immediate area with possible surface water and soil contamination, and and also the potential impact on agricultural lands due to transportation of goods to and from this property via country roads. The official plan and PPS 2331 both indicate that industrial uses shall not hinder surrounding agricultural properties. The contamination of surrounding farmland by the storage and transportation of industrial products is a real concern. There is increasing demand by consumers for all natural and organic products. There is increasing awareness of chemicals and potentially negative health effects resulting from their use. Farmers in our township are growing identity-preserving, all-natural and organic products. Once our farmland is contaminated, that land may not be used for agriculture for several years. PPS 2362 states that non-agricultural uses in agricultural areas are to be mitigated to the extent possible. The ideal way to mitigate the concerns related to potential industrial use is to zone the property as agricultural use only. We must protect our farmland. 4. Impact on existing businesses. Industrial use is in contradiction of PPS 1141, which states, healthy and viable rural areas should be supported by G. Providing opportunities for sustainable and diversified tourism, including natural assets. H. Conserving biodiversity and considering the ecological benefits provided by nature. Industrial use would have a negative impact on existing businesses that do meet these criteria, namely Texas Longhorn Ranch and Sydenham Ridge Estates. They provide and promote tourism in our area. Along with Pillar Academy School, they also provide local employment opportunities. 5. Quality of life for existing residents. Certainly, the quality of life for existing residents is hugely impacted by protecting the Sydenham River and the quality of their drinking water. Any odors associated with industrial use of this property also have a significant impact on their quality of life and use and enjoyment of their properties. As stated in the background report, the key goals of the Special Policy Area Review for the Township Official Plan are: separate incompatible land uses, protect agricultural areas, minimize undesirable short and long-term impact on the natural environment and the quality and quantity of ground and surface water, maintain or improve the quality of life for existing residents. All of these goals can be achieved by removing the special policy area for this property. In conclusion, a significant number of residents from all areas of our township have voiced their concerns to you, our municipal council. We want the special policy area allowing industrial use removed so that the property at 25700 Kerwood Road will be zoned for agricultural use only. You have our support in making this change. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Next up, we have Eric Davis from Miller Thompson LLP, and he would like to speak to special agricultural area for a 25700 Kerwood Road.
Thank you, Your Worship, and members of council. First, just housekeeping matters. I can advise that the following delegations are being withdrawn from the agenda today, being Jay McGuffin, Harry Burma, Peter Johnson, and Chad Anderson, just so that everyone is aware of that. So those delegations will not be speaking today, which might shorten matters a little bit. Firstly, I just wanted to confirm, has all members of council received my earlier correspondence? Everyone's had an opportunity to read that? Quite frankly, I'm not going to reiterate what's in my letter. I trust you can all look at that and read it in the normal course. I think the key point today, at least, or of this meeting, at least from my perspective, is that it's my understanding that what's going to happen after delegations is that council is going to be providing direction to staff what are you basing the decision on? Because normally, at least in my experience, when council is asked to provide direction, there's oftentimes as a result of a recommendation, planning analysis or recommendation. What it appears is that council is being asked to basically direct a particular course of action, perhaps without a specific planning recommendation. Can people hear me all?
We came back there yet.
There you go. So, I mean, when I put myself in council shoes in relation to providing a specific planning recommendation, ultimately you're being asked to provide direction without a whole bunch of information. I mean, I think it was mentioned before that there have been 4 sort of public meetings on this particular subject matter, and I don't believe there's been much new information for the past several public meetings. And so I think, you know, in my particular submission, and what you've seen in my letter, is that we're of the view that the industrial uses, the status quo, should be able to remain. And here's what I wanted to focus on, because if you look at the planning report under 25700 Kerwood Road, it says, within Special Agricultural Policy Area 4, industrial activities including manufacturing, wholesaling, warehousing, distributing, repair, and servicing and storage of goods and materials are permitted. Bulk sales establishments, such as farm fuel agents and building supply outlets, and accessory uses, such as offices and factory retail outlets, may also be permitted. When I hear the opposition, the number of individuals coming forward in opposition, and I greatly appreciate Ms. Cormack's submissions, because she went through a list of 5 things and went through a bit of a planning analysis herself. In my view, what seems to be the real concern, again, is my client's proposed application, which again is not before council. What I understand council is being asked to do tonight is basically decide, okay, are we going to look at removing the special policy areas? And I would suggest the alternative is not to go from special policy area to agriculture. There could be, theoretically, at least a gradation. There could be a number of different options available. But from my understanding and from attending all these public meetings, I don't believe general industrial activities, as I've just described it and as outlined in the staff report, are really the issue. As I understand it, the issue is a particular application, which again has not been publicly circulated and is not before council tonight. In my respectful submission, what I would ask council to do is say, look, we've heard from the public, we understand the concerns that have been expressed. Quite frankly, there's no real justification to remove the special policy area. However, we'll allow my client's application to be processed in the normal course, and I am sure there will be vigorous debate and discussion in relation thereto, both from the public and in around the council table. And so that would be my suggestion as to how to proceed, because when I'm here tonight, I don't know on what basis you would direct right now that the designation be altered or removed from my client's property, because I think the issue here, the crux of this, is not really in relation to special policy areas. The real crux of this is in relation to a very specific land use. So that would be my respectful submission. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Eric. And my understanding from your comments, we have one remaining delegation then, which would be Adelaide Metcalfe from 7162 LaSalle Line, and we'd like to speak to Special Agricultural Policy Area 4A for 25700 Kerwood Road. And sorry, my apologies, I misheard Eric. So then also Roger Burma will also be speaking as well, following David.
All right, thanks for coming out. So I guess my job, generally speaking, is to little bit of the elephant that I see in the room. It wasn't until, I'll divide it between the special policy that we're talking about, the zoning, versus biosolids and biofertilizer. I think there's two different topics, and the main topic that I've been hearing for the longest time is about biosolids and really not much about biofertilizer. So it wasn't until I think that something, the application was being notified or whatever, that we decided to do some zoning amendment in this property. Now, I believe this property has been zoned industrial for many, many years, and ignored it until the application was either notified or was given to. So for 20 years or however long that was industrial zone, we ignored it as industrial zone until this moment. And even when we have 10 different applications out there, we don't, rather than different, the zoning, the different properties, we're all focused on one property. So how I'm looking at it is there's one thing that we're all focused on in one property in one subject. And it seems more like a witch hunt more than anything in my viewpoint. So at the end of the day, again, I'm totally good with looking at the applications that concern the public and so forth. I have no issue with that. That's a beautiful thing. That's how due course should happen, and that's I'm good with that. Now, on the topic of the biosolids versus biofertilizer, I understand the difference because as people come up here, we lump it all together. I pretend that it's all the same thing. It's not, right? So biofertilizer is something that LaSalle Angry sells and distributes. Biofertilizer cannot be used and applied like biosolids, and the main difference is the pathogens in E. coli that's derived in biosolids versus biofertilizer. The biofertilizer goes through a heat treatment processes that bring up to 200 degrees Fahrenheit over a certain period of time to kill all the pathogens in E. coli in the product. And the purpose is for that is so there's no contamination and cross-contamination back to humans. So can it build back up pathogens afterwards? Of course it can. That's the process of it breaking down. You can find E. coli in the water streams and everything from everywhere because it's animals and everything are all over the place. So E. coli is naturally found in river streams and ditches and so forth. So I guess I'm totally good as the application is brought up. The concern that I'm totally good with going through those concerns, and I have total interest in making sure that those concerns are addressed. The problem I see is more towards what I call the witch hunt towards the product. I believe we're talking about zoning, and that was the topic we're supposed to be about, but 95% of what we talk about is about biosolids and the fear about biosolids. And quite frankly, of course you can bring a big group together and we talk about all the fears in the world. So I'm happy with the due process, but I think it has to be honest and legit, and that's my basic message.
Okay, thank you, David. And next we'll have Roger Burma from 7162 LaSalle Line, and we'd like to speak to Special Agricultural Policy Area 4A, which is 25700.
Thank you, Mayor and Deputy Mayor and Council members, and thank you all for coming out. Through this process, I think I might just reiterate some of what Eric has spoken and some of what David has spoken through this process. And like David just mentioned, 95% of what has been spoken about has been about biosolids or biofertilizer, predominantly about biosolids, when the topic is predominantly meant to be and set up to be around the zoning. In 2017, I bought this farm from Dad, knowing about industrial zoning, and in our background in our family, my dad has been part of Penta, Surge, Butler, had a mechanic business, had a glass business, had a carpet cleaning business. The business that he started, Penta, was carried on by my brother, and now he has 85 employees. We currently employ 30 people. We come from an industrious family, it's what we do. When we bought this farm, I was well aware of the industrial zoning and bought it with that purpose in mind that at some point in time there would be something that we could use it for. So the industrial zoning is something that to council members and to the public, I let know that it was something that I purchased the farm our intent that, and our hope that it maintains that. It's not just biofertilizer that we're into, and the application that everyone's speaking about that nobody has seen addresses many of the concerns that were brought forward in the previous meetings. We've spent in excess of $50,000 in studies before presenting an application that everyone's speaking about that no one has seen. That to us has been unfortunate. In the process of making an application, then we started going down this line of doing policy review based on zoning. We had, I think, 7 different properties we lined up here, and each one of them were relatively quiet until they came to ours. We believe that that's no coincidence. And so we would like to see the zoning stay, and there will be other uses down the road that we could use it for, but we would like due diligence done through the process, and if the application goes forward and it can go through due process, we will address all the issues that the public would have, and we welcome them. But as far as the zoning, it's something that was purchased with the farm. We value it, and we love doing the right thing in the community, and we hope to continue doing so. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Roger. And just to be sure, so James McGovern, you are not wanting to speak?
That's correct.
Okay. And Harry Burmo, not wanting to speak. I don't see him in the audience. Peter Johnson? No. And Chad Anderson. Okay, I just wanted to be sure. So moving along, that's the end of our delegation. So we're going to move into the staff reports, and we're going to have Aaron Besch, our planner, come forward to go through the special policy area review analysis.
Thank you, Mayor Smith. So I did just want to do one quick line before we get into the meat of the discussion. I would like to make note that the options that have been provided in this report are for Council's consideration, to which I was looking for discussion. A fulsome planning evaluation will be presented in our draft official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment to be received shortly from Council at a subsequent meeting. So that's sort of what I was looking for this evening, is to hear discussion from Council regarding each policy area. So the first one being special policy area number 1, located at Kerwood Road and Kaiser Road. Within the special policy area, a restaurant and convenience store are permitted. The subject properties are zoned general agricultural and rural residential. So for Council's consideration, consideration could be given to remove this SPA designation from the official plan, as there does not appear to be a need given the configuration and existing residential use of the properties. Further, planning staff are proposing to amend the portion of the property that is zoned general agriculture to rural residential, as the general agricultural A zone is not necessarily applicable in this location, as it doesn't meet any of the provisions set out in the zoning bylaw.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. And I'm going to ask that council members speak loudly so everyone can instead of us all running over to the microphone. So is there any members of council that would like to speak and comment to special policy area 1? Technical difficulties for Councilor McKinnon to open up her iPad there to get to that report. So again, just to remind council members, so special agricultural policy area 1 is to permit a restaurant, convenience store are permitted in those areas, and the zoning is currently general agriculture A and rural residential. Deputy Mayor Hendricks?
Yeah, I see this property as not ever becoming where the restaurant is in, and I think it's a very good place for rural residential.
I can't add anything further, but I agree with that.
Yes, now that I've got a written copy, it's available to us. Yes, within that special area, one, the restaurant and the convenience store are no longer applicable, so I agree with that option.
Okay. Councilor Brody?
Same, it hasn't been used, other than residential in a long time, so.
Okay. So Jennifer Clark.
Yes.
So we have, is there any, you have a motion, somewhat set out kind of a guideline for tonight's meeting. So we have a motion of council after each special policy area. So gathering the information of council, which indicates that all council members, including myself, all agree that the restaurant convenience store will most likely not be permitted going forward in that area. So what would the motion be that you have written before you?
So I have that council considers it appropriate that special agricultural policy area number 1, the opinion that is stated here in Aaron's planning report, that staff undertake an analysis of this option and that staff bring back a report to council with recommended planning document changes.
Okay, so is there a understanding on council? Okay, do you have a mover and seconder for that? Okay, Councilor Clark and Deputy Mayor Hendricks. All those in favor? Opposed, and that's carried. Okay, we're going to move into special agriculture policy area 2. Aaron?
Thank you, Mayor Smith. Special agricultural policy area number 2, located at 3343 Egremont Drive. Within the special policy area, restaurant and motel are permitted. The subject properties are zoned rural commercial. So planning staff advised that consideration could be given to amendments to the zoning bylaw, which would rezone the property from the rural commercial zone to a site-specific rural commercial zone. The site-specific zone would allow a motel and restaurant as permitted uses, neither of which are currently permitted in the RC zone. This would ensure consistency between the official plan and zoning bylaw and reflect the existing and long-established use on the property.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. Is there any comments or questions from members of council?
I'd like to comment on that one. I have no problem with this being switched to the site specific. This was a new council and we're not going to make a whole lot of friends, I'll just say that right now. We've got a lot of businesses in the community that are operating on property that's not zoned properly. So when this new council came in, it was a conscious choice of ours to say, we got a mess here and how are we going to clean it up? So we're not targeting anybody, you're all on the list. So I'm just going to put everybody on notice. So I'm not making any friends, I'm one and done out of here. So I have no problem with that being in that section because that's our focus, trying to channel development to the 81 corridor. So anybody who would have been at council last night, we had an application, it's public knowledge. Somebody wanted to turn a commercial property into residential, and we said no, because our focus up there is not to have mixed development. We wanted commercial or industrial. That's all I have to say.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from members of council?
Basically, I agree with the planning option that's been given to us.
Okay. So just to be clear, the special policy area would remain the same, but with the zoning due to change from the general RC zone to the rural commercial and having a site-specific zone to allow for the motel and restaurant as permitted uses. Okay. Jennifer, would you like to read the motion?
Resolved that council considers it appropriate that special agricultural policy area number 2, with the option as presented in Aaron's planning report, the staff undertake an analysis of this option and that staff bring back a report to council with recommended planning document changes.
Okay, we have a mover and seconder for that. Councilor McKinnon and Councilor Brody. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Okay, we'll move into special agricultural policy area 3. Aaron?
Thank you again, Mayor Smith. So the location of this special policy area is 3536 Egremont Drive, located at the corner of County Road 22 and County Road advise that consideration could be given to amend policy 3.1.10.3 of the official plan to allow those uses permitted in the rural commercial zone as opposed to only a gas bar and motel. This would ensure that the policies of the official plan and the regulations in the zoning bylaw with respect to this SPA align. It is noted that the property is limited in size and therefore may not be appropriate for these two uses outlined in the SPA. By adding to the permitted uses, flexibility could be added to the site as it has limited development potential due to its size and location.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. Is there any questions or comments of members of council? Deputy Mayor Hendricks?
Yeah, that's a really small property. I don't even know why we'd zone it anything, because I don't know what you could use it for besides a corn stand. But for sure we could add to the designations to make something possible with that space.
Councilor Brody?
Yeah, I like the idea of still being rural commercial. That's a kind of commercial corridor. Certainly going to want probably a house going on there with salt storage and interior areas and posts. I like the rural commercial.
Okay.
I think anything that would ever go on there would be very restrictive though because of the size. They'd be very, very limited.
And the proximity to county resources and salt storage.
Councilor McKinnon, do you have any comments? Okay, so I think it's the general intent that the changing it from the site-specific zone to only allow for the gas bar and motel and changing it to allow for the list of opportunities through the rural commercial zone is what council's wanting to move towards. So if that's the case, we have the motion allowed.
Resolved that council consider appropriate that special agriculture policy area number 3 with the option as presented in Aaron Besh's planning report for rural commercial, and that staff undertake an analysis of this option, and that staff present the report to council with recommended planning document changes.
Okay, mover and seconder. Okay, Councilor McKinnon and Councilor Brody. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Okay, we're going to move into special agricultural policy area 4A. Aaron?
Thank you, Mayor Smith. So the location of this property is 25700 Kernwood Road. Within this special policy area, industrial activities including manufacturing, wholesaling, warehousing, distributing, repair and servicing and storage of goods and materials are permitted. Bulk sales establishments such as farm fuel agents and building supply outlets and accessory uses such as office and factory retail outlets may also be permitted. The property is within the industrial zone with a holding symbol. After review of the information provided in the background report and comments received during public consultation, there appear to be two options for council's consideration. The first option is to maintain the special policy area and existing zoning as it is. As mentioned in the background report, this would permit various industrial activities on this property. The second option would be to amend the official plan to remove the special policy area and redesignate the property agricultural. If this option were chosen, an amendment to the zoning bylaw would also be required to rezone the property from industrial to the general agricultural zone. This option would reflect the best practices identified through the jurisdictional scan, which entails utilizing special policy areas to accommodate existing land uses that may require a more detailed land use policy.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. Is there any questions or comments from members of council? Questions or comments from members of council? Okay, Deputy Hendricks?
Well, in all our other policy areas, we've reviewed past use, present use, and what the present owner would like to do with that property. And that's, I think there's some consistency required in that area. Historically, we haven't heard why it was, this was zoned commercial in the first place. That would have been good history to have. Or industrial, sorry. I understand understand the feelings in the room, and I've certainly sat on both sides of the tables that are out there. I'll let other councillors speak, but I think that in all other cases, we've considered the owner's use to be the prime concern, and the other uses in the areas. So this also, well, I haven't got anything more to say right now.
My understanding was that years ago this was an industrial site due to the livestock co-op or building that was there.
You're thinking of Senate policy area 4B.
Okay, I'm on the wrong one, sorry. So we're 4A. So, thinking back to the policies with respect to all of the properties and especially 4A and 4B, we're thinking that consideration should be given to amend the official plan to scope the policies with respect to the special policy area and address the existing uses and include the policy on the permitted uses that are compatible with the nearby hamlet. Am I still on here? No.
What name are we talking?
Karen Gordon.
You're on the wrong one, so.
Yeah.
So 4A, which is, we're talking about the industrial land that's the triangle property. That we're speaking of as Winter, Kerwood, and Pelham.
Okay, let's move on.
And I think given what they can be used for, you know, we don't as a council envision having a mall out there and having retail, and I believe that is one of the things that could be out there. Anybody who's read any recent impact statements, we've lost in the last 2 years just about 800 farms. So I think, you know, we have some sort of responsibility to maintain the agricultural integrity of our community.
Any other questions or comments from members of council? Deputy Hendricks?
One thing I think as a council we should consider that when something is zoned industrial, and especially with a holding symbol, it means that nothing goes forward until we approve the site plan and the activities have all been, as some of our speakers spoke. There's comments allowed to be considered on them and more evidence, and when it's zoned agricultural, we have nutrient management plans which the township has no control of, and not all farmers are obligated to submit a nutrient management plan, depending on the amount of livestock they have. I think that we can regulate an area much more effectively with given that this is already farmland, but I think we can zone it, or we can regulate it more effectively when we can get a site plan and put safeguards in for the public.
Councilor Brody?
So, following Deputy Mayor Hendricks' comments with the holding pattern on a rural
It's commercial.
commercial,
Industrial.
so industrial, there's more issues that we can control by
We require certain studies and evaluations of the property and the proposed use that can be reviewed again by certain agencies and departments to ensure that the proposal is meets all of our standards, and then council has the final approval over the site plan agreement to be registered on title on the property.
Do you have anything further on that? Okay. Councilor McKinnon and then Deputy Mayor.
Through the mayor, Curtis, to Aaron. So if council were to choose the agricultural zone, would we do it site specific and then we would place the regulations that would ensure that we were meeting everyone's concerns in regards to the ministries and St. Clair region and all that would be notified.
Sorry, just to clarify, you're wondering if that you could place a holding symbol on an agricultural zone?
If we were to remove the H
Okay.
and make it site specific, would that be doable?
Council has the opportunity to change zoning based on their decision, certainly. We will be bringing forward a draft official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment. Is that something that you would like us to place into our evaluation? We can certainly do that and provide you with a planning rationale response to that.
Deputy Mayor Hendricks.
Yeah, I guess my question would be that you talked about different agencies that would have, that would consider the application, and that would be things like the St. Clair and Ministry of Ag and Food and generally.
Yes, so we do have a circulation list that we are legislated to provide the application to. Certainly the Conservation Authority, we do have some ministries that we're required to.
MOE.
It would be up to the township to, Jennifer has a list that she's required to circulate to, but everything is reviewed by the county Conservation Authority. Certainly if there's engineered drawings in terms of servicing, that's reviewed by our engineers. So there is definitely a peer review portion that is looking at what is submitted.
Question, Aaron. Is this special policy area, since it's an industrial zone, is it one of our employment lands within the township? Or considered an employment land?
So industrial and employment are kind of interchangeable. It kind of used to be called industrial. It's now more focused as employment land, especially within the provincial policy statement. That's how it's known now. And typically with any changes to employment lands, a comprehensive review would be required in order to determine do we have enough industrial land based on population projections and employment projections. So it's certainly something to consider. It's not necessarily a simple process to remove employment lands. There's a bit of more of a process involved as required under the provincial policy statement.
Okay. And since my time in the council, I don't think we've done one of those reviews. Councilor McKinnon. Kathy, do you know if we've done a review on our employment lands?
No, we haven't.
So if we were to remove the industrial lands from this zone, then should we also consider if we should be relocating those industrial zones somewhere else within the township and have that review to see where it would be most appropriate if it's not in this location?
Certainly, I think it's important that the township have an appropriate mix and range of land uses within the township. So I think it would be appropriate to ensure that you have enough to meet the needs of the current needs for employment lands as well as future needs.
Is there any other questions or comments from council? I haven't figured out the direction that we're headed yet, so I'm not going to ask Jennifer to ask for a motion. So,
like the idea of having a gold on that symbol on each on that property. I think that probably gives us more. The current landowner would have to certainly follow protocols on what they can do, what they can't do with that property through the township, so that would be better option.
Okay, and so it currently does have the old symbol on it, so you're suggesting to leave it with the old symbol, or looking into anything additional?
We probably could look into anything additional.
Councilor Clark?
So Aaron, are we, is there legislation that dictates what percentage of land base we have to keep in industrial?
Well, it's all based on population and employment projections.
I guess it's on the spot, like up 81 highway, do we have any industrial up there?
Well, the other councillors might remember the previous interim control bylaw review that we did in 2017, 2018. So it was in collaboration with Stratford Caradoc, and one of the big indicators that came out of it was that that corridor was not to be in competition with the industrial area in Strathroy. So we do have a few areas that have retained their industrial ability, Dashwood being one of them now. So we don't have any other designated industrial along that corridor.
Is there any questions or comments so we can get some sort of direction or opinion to staff to further look into or prepare any potential amendments?
Yeah, I'm just looking for the right words. So I move that we maintain the present zone on 4A.
Okay, so Jennifer, do you want to give a motion?
So that would be,
Description.
yeah, so that would be the first motion. So if that's going off of Deputy Mayor Hendricks, resolve that council considers it appropriate that special agricultural policy area 4A would stay as industrial with the holding provision, and that staff undertake an analysis of this option, and that staff bring back a report to council with recommended planning document changes.
Okay, do we have a seconder to that? Okay, we do not have a seconder. You want to second it? Okay, we'll second it by Councilor Clark. Any discussion?
Just a question here. So if we leave it as status quo, can you review that again?
Sure. So
Bring
if
it back to
resolve that council considers it appropriate that special agricultural policy 4A with the option to leave as is, so that'll be with the industrial zone with the holding symbol, and that staff undertake an analysis of this option, and that staff bring back a report to council with recommended planning document changes.
So this, if we leave this, vote on this motion right now, we still, this has a, it's still gonna come back to our council for final approval.
Correct.
Because I mean, if there's drivers like employment and population, I mean, we'll see what it's like.
Any further discussion? Okay, so just for clarification then, Jennifer, then there would still be further information on,
Yes, because there's direction for staff to undertake an analysis of that option, which is option 1 to stay status quo with the industrial and holding provision. And then another direction for staff to bring back a report to council with recommended planning document changes.
I understand? that area of the township, or whether we should look in a different area. So I would rather, I will vote against this, just so then, and as I would like to see that we have more discussion, more analysis on the actual industrial land within the township, and see where it's best fit. Because as it's been stated, this was put there in 1992, I believe, and there's a lot of time passed since then, a lot of councils and amalgamation, and I would rather see if it makes sense if those lands right for that area, or if they should be in a different area within the township. Is there any other comments on, or any other discussion on this motion? Councilor Sumari,
Can we just amend the prior motion, put that added to it then?
is that okay?
Yeah, because that's, like, we need to know what, you know, maybe we can't change this, there's no choice, or maybe it doesn't make sense here, or it does make sense. Like, I think we need some more information, and we may be restricted as to what we can actually do. So, yeah, I'm here to
Deputy Hendricks? Agree?
friendly amendment.
Okay, so can we have the motion then read out with the additions?
Sure. And correct me if I don't have it correct. So resolve that council considers it appropriate that special agricultural policy 4A, with the option to leave it as an industrial zone with the holding provision, that staff undertake an analysis of this option to also include a study analysis of industrial lands where appropriate within the township, and that staff bring back a report to council with recommended planning document changes.
Okay. So just to be clear, since we're adding that into that motion, I'll be in agreement to that as we're looking at the industrial lands as a whole. Okay, so if there's no further discussion, all those in favor? Opposed? Oh, you did? Oh, it's okay. And that's carried. Okay, moving into special policy area, agricultural policy area 4B. Councilman King is jumping all over, she's ready for this.
So the next special policy area we are looking at is 4B, which is 6136 Calvert Drive and 26786 Dunning Road. So this is the same special policy area as the previous one that we have discussed, including the same sort of industrial activities. The properties are zoned site-specific rural industrial, limited agricultural, and general agriculture. The planning staff advised that consideration could be given to amend the zoning bylaw to scope the policies with respect to the special policy area, to acknowledge the property's existing uses and include policy direction on permitted uses that are compatible with the nearby hamlet.
Okay, are there any questions or comments from members of council? Councilman Kennedy? Do you have a few comments on this? Excellent.
Basically, I just thought we should be reflecting the uses that are currently there. And the livestock facility is no longer the use that was there. I believe now it's a trucking and farmland.
Any other questions or comments on this one? Deputy Hendricks?
Yeah, I agree that
Just a comment on this one. I'm thinking we should treat this as around the same as the prior. Kind of the status quo, there's going to be restrictions on, because it's close to the hand regardless anyways, that they have to go through proper channels to do any expansion or anything else. I can't see changing this one per se right now without any kind of use permission or requesting.
Councilor Kevin?
Just clarification, are you thinking of the employment and the industrial uses like for the previous property, the report coming back? Is that what you're?
Well, yeah, there's certainly employment at this location, and there's an existing business going on there. So right now, I wouldn't want to hinder existing operation that is going. If there is going to be any kind of expansion of any kind, you would have to apply the proper channels. So right now, I'm really not concerned about changing too much with this location.
Jennifer, do you understand the correction?
So,
Okay.
resolved that council consider it appropriate that special agricultural policy area 4B with the option to stay as is, so that's the rural industrial, limited agricultural, and general agricultural, and that staff undertake an analysis of this option as well as the study analysis of industrial lands throughout the township, and staff bring back a report to council with the recommended planning document changes.
Okay, do you have a mover and seconder for that? Councilor Clark and Councilor McKinnon. Any further discussion on this? All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. We're going to move into Special Agricultural Policy Area 5. Aaron?
I'm actually going to throw this over to Abby now.
Oh, okay.
All right, thank you, Ms. Smith. So I'm going to move on to Special Agricultural Policy Area 5, which is located at 1745 Melwood Drive, 26232 Kerwood Road, 26210 Kerwood Road, and 26158 Kerwood Road. So within SPA 5, a campground and trailer park are permitted. The properties are zoned rural residential, site-specific rural residential, environmental protection, and parks and recreation. So planning staff are of the opinion that the Parks and Recreation Zone is not appropriate for the lands contained in the trailer park, as neither recreation active nor recreation passive allow the use. Therefore, staff are recommending consideration to be given to amend the portion of the property that contains the trailer park from the Parks and Rec Zone to the site-specific Parks and Recreation Zone to recognize the existing trailer park and campground.
Okay, thank you, Abby. Is there any questions or comments of members of council?
So by doing what you're recommending, does that just take it right out of special policy and then it's own property? Or the facility is going to be a budget policy?
So the special policy area would remain, but it would bring the zoning bylaw into conformity with the open.
Okay.
Is there any questions or comments? Deputy Hendricks?
Yeah, I think having a special parks and recreation zone, a site-specific zone would be useful. If we added trailer park and campground to parks and recreation, normally we'd have trailers in Kerwood and we can't have that. So I'm good with changing to a site-specific parks and recreation zone.
Okay, do you have any questions or comments on this? No. Councilor Brody?
Just a question for the planners again. Can you just explain totally what the difference is from Parks and Rec, so PR zone, Specific, so that just makes it
Just for that
specific
property,
to
right?
that property to say that that is.
Correct, so that the trailer park and the campground would be approved use in that same specific zone.
So, and then just further to that, so in our zoning bylaw amendment, under the PR zone, it would list underneath there that on map such and such, it would be the permitted use additionally to that would be the trailer park and campground. Okay, there's, yeah, Councilor Kennedy.
Just a comment on that, I think that likely the Parks and Recreation was designated as a zoning when it was owned by the St. Clair Conservation Authority. So this is just tidying it up and making it applicable to what's there today.
Jennifer, you'd be, okay.
Resolved that council considers it appropriate that special agricultural policy area 5, so with the option to change the Parks and Rec to Parks and Rec site specific, and that staff undertake an analysis of this option, and that staff bring back a report to council with recommended planning document changes.
Do you have a mover and seconder for that? Okay, Councilor McKinnon and Deputy Hendricks. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. We're going to move into special agricultural policy area 6. Abby?
Thank you, Mayor Smith. So the location of SPA 6 is at 23979 Mayfair Road. So within SPA 6, an individual building site is permitted for a single detached dwelling and accessory home business. The property is zoned general agricultural and environmental protection. So consideration could be given to the removal of the SPA from the official plan, as there does not appear to be a need for the designation. As noted in the memo to council, planning staff are of the opinion that this SPA may have been implemented to facilitate the construction of the residence that currently stands at 23979 Mayfair Road, and that the identified location on Schedule A1 of the current official plan may be the result of a mapping error.
Is there any questions or comments from members of council? Clark?
So there is next to the, house next door there, where there is a home business, but it isn't, because like it's permitted for that property, so I think it must have been a map here. Because it doesn't make sense, because they can still have a home business there, where it is, generally.
Is there any other questions or comments on this one? I think this one's pretty well straightforward. So there's a motion for council consideration.
Resolved that council considers it appropriate that special agricultural policy area 6, with the option to remove the special policy area from the official plan, and that staff undertake an analysis of this option, and that staff bring back a report to council with recommended planning document changes.
Okay, mover and seconder for that. Deputy Hendricks and Councilor Clark. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. We're going to move into special agricultural policy area 7.
Thank you, Mayor Smith. So within SPA 7, an administrative office building and maintenance facility are permitted. The property is zoned institutional. Planning staff advised that consideration could be given to the removal of the special policy area designation, which permits an administrative office building and maintenance facility. Further consideration may include designating this property as agricultural in the official plan and to maintain the institutional zoning, both of which permit a place of worship. This would acknowledge the current use of the property.
Okay, thank you. Abby, is there any questions or comments from members of council?
I think it can be removed from special policy and have it institutional.
Okay, so we have, so you're moving that we proceed with correction? Okay, and second by Deputy Hendricks. You have the motion read aloud.
Resolved that council considers it appropriate that special agricultural policy policy area 7 with the option to remove the institutional special policy area be removed, and that staff undertake an analysis of this option, and that staff bring back a report to council with recommended planning documents.
Okay, so that's moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, and that's carried. Okay, we're going to move into the special urban policy area number 2.
Thank you, Mayor Smith. So, Special Urban Policy Area 2 is located at 3279 Napperton Road, 120 Eastman Ave, and 123 Eastman Ave. So within this Special Urban Policy Area, a commercial greenhouse use is the only permitted commercial use. The properties are zoned institutional, site-specific general agricultural, A1-10, site-specific general agricultural A1 or A-11. Urban residential and site-specific urban residential UR-17. Planning staff advised that consideration could be made to maintain the Special Urban Policy Area 2 as it is. This property has been subject to numerous planning applications, including Official Plan Amendment number 8, which first established the SPA to permit the existing commercial greenhouses. Planning staff also suggests maintaining the property's current zoning being institutional, site-specific general agricultural A-10 and A-11, urban residential, and then the site-specific urban residential, which is UR-17.
Great, thank you, Abby. Is there any questions or comments from members of council? Councilor Clark?
Yeah, this one is a bit of a dog purpose, is it not? In the official plan, it's one way and then it's zoned differently? This one? Because there, like, there's restrictions with that property too, because, you know, they can't, if you have it, institutional, and let's say they, or if you want above it, they put a church in or whatever, like, they can't, they don't have access to town water, they don't have access to sewer, all of that, that's the property, right?
There's several properties that are within the special policy. I have a map actually, would that help?
Yeah.
Take a look at
I don't
it.
know, yeah. I just don't see how it can do so many things.
So there's several properties here that are affected by the special policy area. So this one is the, I believe what you're referring to, the
Yeah.
industrial, or the institutional property here. So if you look at the zoning as well, all it's basically doing is acknowledging what was there at the time of the official plan amendment, which was July of 2013 or something like that.
Okay, so I think where I'm confused as well, so why don't we treat them as in, like, each one individually for each property owner? It doesn't matter, it's just the whole area.
Right, so at the time, I believe that there was numerous planning applications going forward. I don't know if anyone was on council at that time, but they proposed several configurations for lot consents for additional lots. So it's, I think it was added to encompass the whole area. Things have changed slightly in terms of there's new ownership of this property, but it's still the special policy area is the encompassing area.
And you don't have to break it out by each individual property that are going to be out there, right? Or is it, you just treat it as one catching area and you just muck it all together?
I believe that the reason that they had the special policy area added was the proximity to the residential uses that are already there. So to permit the greenhouses that had been in operation while still sort of in a residential area, they added that just to say that the only commercial uses would be greenhouses. Anything else would not be permitted. So I don't know why they put it as the whole area, but that's.
So this piece here, this one, so is this that's on the, right?
Yes.
But in the official plan, does it not show residential?
Within the
Two lots of residential, is not what that is or not? That's what I was led to believe, like that.
I will have to look into that for you. I believe that, do you remember if that was?
Or it doesn't have to, so maybe it's just I don't understand. So you don't have to be compatible with the official plan if
allowing residential designation, then it can still continue. It's just saying that the only commercial use in this area can be greenhouses. So if their zoning is institutional, they have the ability to put in the church because that's not a commercial use.
But they could put a greenhouse in too, or no?
So they would require a
Yeah, exactly. Okay, thanks.
All right, is there any other questions or comments on this one?
Yeah, so I'll make a motion that we proceed, with the recommendation. Yeah, I just-
Okay, so Councilor Clark's going to move it. Do we have a seconder? Seconder Hendricks and Jennifer?
Resolved that council considers it appropriate that special urban policy area number 2 with the option to stay as is, so that would keep your institutional site-specific general agricultural A10, site-specific general agricultural A11, urban residential and site-specific urban residential UR17, and that staff undertake an analysis of this option, and that staff bring back a report to council with recommended planning document changes.
Okay, so moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Moving into our next one and our last one, which is the special urban policy area 4.
Thank you, Mayor Smith. So Special Urban Policy Area 4 is located on the east side of Center Road, which is known as County Road 81, just north of the Highway 402. So within the Special Urban Policy Area, highway commercial uses, including motel, restaurant, and gas bar are permitted. These uses may be restricted in the zoning bylaw by use of a holding provision, setting out the requirements for development of the site. The property is zoned corridor commercial with a holding symbol. Similar to Special Agricultural Policy Area 4A, there appear to be several options for council consideration with respect to the special policy area. The first option would be to maintain the existing permissions within the SPA and within the zoning bylaw. This option would allow for the potential future development of the site for uses similar to the properties located further south on Center Road. However, due to a lack of servicing to this site, future development will be limited. The second option for council's consideration is to amend the official plan to remove the special policy area and redesignate the property as agricultural. If this option is chosen, staff suggests an amendment to rezone the property from the commercial corridor zone to the general agricultural zone. This option would reflect. So it would bring the official plan and the zoning bylaw into conformity with one another.
Is there any questions or comments from members of the council?
Well, there are restrictions on this, given they take it to service.
Deputy Hendricks and Councilor Brody.
Yeah, I agree that without servicing commercial development, it will take a long time, and we have a lot of infilling we can do in the rest of the commercial zone yet before we need to start tackling this. I would move that
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
given like what was done for Dorvans,
Yeah.
right, I'm thinking we don't want to restrict, like, we're trying to encourage the 81 corridor, right? So, I would propose that we, what are you saying, Mike, leave it commercial corridor and first option.
It has a holding pattern on
Yeah,
it, so.
yeah, they just stay the same. I like that.
I would see the same as well. It's hard, once you remove a commercial designation, it's hard to get that back. So if we were looking at removing it, putting it back in the agricultural zone, I would like it to be this very similar to what we're doing with special policy area 4A. If we were looking at removing it, I'd like to see where we can place that somewhere else in the township, whether that's to the south of the 402 or wherever it is. But so I think we have options to either leave, in my opinion, we should either leave it as is, or we should look at relocating that designation somewhere else in the township, so we don't lose that amount of land that's designated commercial.
Yeah, I just double checked the map and I thought it was the whole 100, but it's only a small piece, so I'm good with that. I can see that as an excellent industrial.
Yeah, I mean, if you had some equipment dealer up there, something we want to encourage.
Okay, so then first, it looks like we're moving towards leaving it as is. Want to read that out loud?
Resolve that council consider it appropriate that special urban policy area number 4, with the option to leave as is commercial corridor with the holding provision, and that staff undertake an analysis of this option, and that staff bring back a report to council with recommended planning document changes.
Okay, so it was moved by Councilor Brody, seconded by Councilor Clark. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Okay, thank you, Abby and Aaron, for going through those. And would you like to just explain the next steps and where we're going from here and what will happen?
Thank you, Mary Smith. So from this discussion this evening, Abby and myself will be going back to complete our planning analysis and evaluation to bring forward a draft official plan amendment and a draft zoning bylaw amendment. What that would look like, to all those who aren't necessarily familiar with what that is, it's basically going through our official plan, identifying any sections or maps that need to be revised according to not only discussion this evening, but our planning evaluation, and then further council will have the final approval on those documents. So that will be brought back as soon as sometime early March for, again, for councils to take a look at, and will be part of a statutory board meeting as well. Thank you, Mayor Smith. So the official plan amendment is a two-step process. So while it is approved at the local level through our township council, it is also approved at the county level. They are the top tier sort of delegated authority or approval authority. So they will also need to review any changes that we propose to the official plan and then approve it from their end as well.
Thank you. Is there any other questions or comments from members of council? No? Okay, seeing as that's it for our agenda, we need a motion to adjourn. Okay, Councilor Brody, Deputy Hendricks, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you so much for coming out and taking that.